Search operations are underway for a missing 14-year-old boy in Cape Town. The boy's family alerted the NSRI he was having difficulty swimming off a Monwabisi beach on Friday. 5 rescue swimmers were deployed to find the boy, but they haven't had no luck. The NSRI is warning of dangerous rip currents on that coast. For more on this, Craig Lambinon from the NSRI joins us now. Craig, we know it's that time of the year when we have to have these kinds of rather tragic conversations. A couple of stories that we've had to update our viewers on, but this one being the most worrying at the moment. It was a 14-year-old boy when the NSRI was alerted that he was in some kind of trouble offshore. Can you tell us what's happened since then?
Thank you. Good morning. The police dive unit are continuing an ongoing search operation. In this case, they are being assisted by NSRI Strandfontein and by law enforcement. They, obviously being a weekend, they're all on a standby in that same area, so they are assisting the police. Obviously, family are also at the beach keeping a lookout for their child. It's a very sad situation. Sadly, we've had a number of drownings excuse me, around the beach, around the coast over the last a few days. Also, the tragic incident yesterday where a boat capsized at Claymont. There, sadly, 3 Horston men have died from their boat capsizing during the night. And we've also had an incident at Wilderness at the Goyne River mouth where a 33-year-old man has drowned. Fortunately, during a search yesterday, late afternoon, the NSRI Wilderness were able to locate and recover that body. But it is the most difficult part is when we haven't recovered a body and the family are obviously anxiously waiting. And so the priority at the moment at Monwabisi is to carry on searching for that child.
Yeah, and that must be an horrendous thing for a family to go through. They saw the child, could see the child was in trouble and held on to hope that he could be saved before that trouble became something even worse. Now, Craig, the new moon spring tide is what everybody's dealing with right now. What do people, beachgoers or swimmers, need to know about how different the water is as a result of the new moon spring tide?
Yeah, so look at any time of the month, every single day, everywhere in the world where there's a coastline, you're going to find rip currents. As the waves reach the shoreline, the waves have to find a way to recede to get back out to sea, and it does that by forming a rip current. Naturally, during a spring tide, there are added dangers. The high tide is higher than normal, the low tide is lower than normal, and during the receding tide, most certainly, when a higher than normal high tide recedes to the lower than normal low tide, the rip current, the river of water, which is what a rip current is going to be a bit stronger, particularly in certain places. But because rip currents form at different places constantly throughout the day, that's the biggest danger. Summer is here now. We are appealing to the public, go to beaches only where and when lifeguards are on duty. They're watching out for where the rip currents are forming, and they'll advise people where to swim. And most importantly, your children have to have responsible adult supervision while they're in the water. And in those cases, the responsible adult can't be distracted by something like a cell phone or chatting to friends. They've got the responsible person who's designated to watch the children while they're swimming, has to physically watch them the whole time until they're safely out the water, because drowning is silent. And when a person drowns, it's not like in the movies where they're waving their arms around and shouting. It's simply sinking underwater. And that's a natural phenomenon. And that's the biggest danger. And people suddenly realize they haven't been watching their children, and suddenly their child is missing in the water. Arguably one of the greatest tragedies that life can throw at you. It's also understandable how fast the response is by all of the emergency services that respond to drowning incidents anywhere around our coastline, and even at the likes of the inland dams, Hartbeespoort Dam, Vaal Dam, etc. The response is incredibly fast by the emergency services, the NSRI, lifeguards, ambulance services, fire, police, but still people drown. So we need people to be cautious when they're on the beach. Make sure that you've got everybody well prepared if someone gets into trouble. Don't go too deep into the water. Watch out for rip currents. and have a safety-conscious mindset. Make sure you've got the phone numbers for the emergency service, the NSRI. You can get that on our webpage at www.nsri.org.za. But it's incredibly important if you're going to any place that's not the norm, and the sea is like going to the wild for the day. It's like visiting the Kruger National Park for the day. You're going to a place that has inherent danger. You need to be prepared for a safe day on the beach. Have your safety-conscious mindset. Make sure that the family know where the lifeguards are on the beach, the law enforcement officers, the police, so that you can go and ask them for assistance very quickly if you need it. Don't take a chance. Have a safe day. We know that everybody's been locked up with this lockdown, and that with summer approaching now, we also had the added disadvantage that we had the COVID-19 lockdown, then we were faced with winter, and now it's summer and a little bit more freedom. Yeah. We know there's going to be a lot more people going to the beach.
Now, Craig, and that's two things. Firstly, a great advice that you're giving, but also people need to be self-aware about what their skills levels are when it comes to whether or not they can swim, whether or not they would have the ability to help their own child if the child was in danger, and what is the water capable and swimming capabilities of their child before deciding where and when to enter the water as well. One would suppose that is an important thing to keep in mind, as well as a long list of things that you've mentioned as well. But just before I let you go, you talk about the warm weather has arrived, and it comes on the back of a very long and hard lockdown for many South Africans. And for many, the greatest escape and what's free for them to enjoy in this country is our beautiful coastline. You can understand that there's an extra level of relief and excitement and desperation just to put your feet on the sand, get your body in the water, and just wash away the troubles over the last few years, the last few months rather, but I suppose it has felt like years in time. I suppose your staff would also get the sense that people are just so desperate to get out there, but sometimes that comes with its own set of dangers as well.
Correct. I think, fortunately, for an organisation like the NSRI, the same as the likes of the ambulance services and fire and rescue, nothing has really changed for us over COVID-19. We've been on high alert throughout. During COVID-19, we responded to something like 62 incidents around the coastline. So we always obviously ready. The other fortunate thing is that the lifeguards are coming out of their a winter period where they're not physically standing by on the beach. They've been training hard. Everybody, all South African Lifesaving, the municipal lifesaving, the other lifesaving clubs, the independent lifesaving, they all gearing, including now NSRI lifesaving. We've also starting physically having standbys at beaches. So everybody's well prepared for the summer, but the onus of safety is obviously on the individual. Go to beaches where lifeguards are on duty. Plan your day. Plan which beach you're going to go to. Again, like you say, where children have different levels of ability, you need to make sure that you exercising your child as much as possible. We had a case the other day where a family were talking about their child going snorkeling and that they kept losing sight of their child while they were snorkeling. Remember that it's as important to teach your child responsibility. So when you're snorkeling with somebody, both of you are buddy-buddy. So it's not to say that you're watching your child's supposed to be watching you as well. And that kind of responsibility when you go to the beach is extremely important, to give that responsibility to your children, that they are also self-watching themselves. You're not just letting them loose into the sea. And I think that's the important thing. But other things, your swimming pool at home, a high level of safety around it, a fence, a safety net, any body of water. When you're hanging up the washing and you've got a bucket of water next to you and there's a baby, make sure that your child isn't clambering up into that bucket of water and falling in. And unbelievably, that kind of thing happens.
Indeed it does, Craig. Unfortunately, we need to cut our conversation there short. But I think in closing, with great freedom comes great responsibility. And with our great beaches and coastline, even bigger responsibility as well. So thank you to you and your team for doing all you can to keep us safe as the warmer weather hits and we are able to take advantage of this our beautiful sea waters. Craig Lambinon from NSRI updating.